Hello, and welcome to .Art's series of online CPD sessions for primary art coordinators. .Art is a Liverpool-based art organisation which supports visual artists and champions art as an integral part of everyday life. Since 2012, they have been running .Art Schools, an online inter-school art competition, as well as offering artist-led workshops in schools across the Northwest. This series of films aims to introduce skills and processes brought to you by local artists. We aim to offer a selection of simple but brilliant ways to effectively engage your students through art in the classroom. These practical projects are adaptable to all ages and easy to replicate. You can access this video at any time, as well as download the session notes to keep. My name is Madeleine. I'm a professional artist with a teaching qualification. I tutor children part-time in art and English, as well as leading art courses for adults. When I was growing up, I was fortunate to have an all-round education which allowed a lot of access to creative, musical and sports activities, as well as the academic side. My mum's best friend was an art teacher at the local college, and she would always look over my shoulder when I was drawing and give me tips. That's what I enjoy doing now, at this stage in my life, and today I'm going to try and pass on some essential points that I hope you will find useful in your primary schools. There are so many benefits in having an art education. Observation skills, hand-eye coordination, concentration on one thing. Most people know that art is calming and good for the mental state, but it's also good for developing practical skills in those who may want to become a surgeon when they grow up, for example. People often only see a pretty picture instead of something that has improved a person's dexterity and agility. Time spent drawing and painting increases sensitivity and precision, both practically and mentally. We know from sports and music that the more you practice, the more you begin to realise what works and what doesn't work, and the more confident you become. Art, and in particular observational drawing, helps a person to understand what something really is. It invites us to look more deeply at things and to consider their meaning and our response. So this is partly about developing skills, but it's also about allowing a process to grow a person's ability to reflect and make their own connections and ideas. Good, so now you're looking over my shoulder and I'm demonstrating form, getting the general shape of something by doing this sample drawing, this lovely bowl of fruit that we see here. If you like, you can ask children to choose one or two pieces of fruit if you think a whole bowl would be overwhelming for them. But for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to draw the whole bowl. Now, before starting, assess the situation. We're going to do an observational drawing something from life, as opposed to something from a photo or an image. It will help to ask these questions to your pupils before they even pick up a pencil. So question 1. Can I see the entire object? Help them to consider that this is something three-dimensional and they are doing a rendition on something that is two-dimensional. I can't see the back. I can't see every single side of these pieces of fruit. Number 2, what different shapes and textures are there? Encourage them to see not just circles, but ovals. Is there something spiky like the pineapple? Ask them to look at different shapes, like here we have a sort of star shape here, a flower. Question 3, what are the light areas? Where is the light coming from? Ask them to notice these little white spots here, where the fruit is shining. Number 4, what are the darkest areas? Ask them to notice these shapes here, these dark shadows. Then get them to look at their paper. So I've got a sheet of A3 paper here, but you can use A4. Ask them to visualize the subject matter within their sheet of paper. What we're aiming for is to fill the page, but leave a bit of space around with the entire thing in the middle if they can. Composition and sizing can be difficult for beginners to get right, but as I said before, these things, practice makes perfect. But what we want to avoid with young children is them just picking up a pencil and starting drawing something over here in the corner and not having enough space to get everything in there. So that's why it's important to get them to visualize the subject matter within their sheet. Okay, so we're going to start drawing the general shape now. I have this pencil. I have these sketching pencils, and there's 6 of them. And just to get the drawing started, I've chosen a fairly hard pencil. It's, well, 2B. So you can just use an ordinary writing pencil for this stage, it's fine. But it is quite important that they hold the pencil about halfway up, not down here, because it'll be much easier to do some light and wispy shapes just to get it started. I've seen a lot of times that children sort of race into a drawing and they put a really hard line straight away, which can be difficult to rub out, and then they're not happy. It can be quite frustrating for them. So encourage them when they're starting a drawing to use very light, wispy shapes that can be easily rubbed out. A rubber it's not just to be associated with making mistakes. It's a tool, and what you want them to be doing is to first get the shape of the bowl, just get the sort of shape of it, and then start focusing on different outlines. So at this point we're not zooming in on detail. We are just flicking back and forth from our eyes to the subject matter, to our paper. I'm not spending too long staring at my paper. I'm just getting these different shapes established. And with observational drawing, it's not what you think it is. I mean, we've all seen an apple before, haven't we? But it's how those shapes fit in with each other. That's how they will relate to each other. So you can see I've got this lemon here. I can't see the whole lemon. And what I'm doing is I'm noticing that this stalk of the pear, it's in front of it. And I'm seeing how it relates to this one next to it as well. And I'll talk about this a bit more, but you can even see a sort of triangular shape that's made in between those 3 pieces of fruit. And it all makes up the picture. What I'm drawing now is a fig. Probably not the most popular fruit for children, but we want to have a different array of different shapes and different colours as well, different tones, different textures and patterns. I quite like the way that figs are kind of stripy, and avocados are sort of knobbly. And it's really useful with art lessons to choose subject matter that has a range of different textures and tones, because that really makes them come to life when they get drawn. And it's all about sort of picking out little details. But what we're doing at the moment, we are just getting the shapes, and then we will focus on getting all those little details and shading. It is also possible to work out from one point in a drawing, which, you know, some people find useful to do that. Once they've got one thing right, they shade on to the next. But probably, I think for children it's better just to teach them this method, because it is more straightforward. So again, as you monitor, just remind them to hold the pencil quite far up and not to press too hard, because this is the stage where you can reposition things. See here that my orange is sort of, it looks a bit smaller than it should be perhaps. Sometimes children kind of, they found they've run out of space, but that's fine. This is the point where you can, you know, get your rubber and just make the necessary adjustments. And this is why I say to avoid putting detail on at this stage, because often children can give up or think, oh, it's too difficult, or oh, I'm terrible, I can't do it. They do that because they don't see the right stage to reposition things. So as their teacher, you have to sort of notice those things and say that it's normal. You know, I'm a professional artist, and it's normal to have to sometimes rub out the first mark you made. It's completely normal. It's not a mistake. But you have to remind them that if they hadn't made that first mark, none of the picture would exist at all. So just let them be nice and free and loose at this stage. Now, probably the most challenging thing about this bowl of fruit is probably the pineapple. So you see all these spiky bits. If you think that your class has got quite a lot to cope with, I would say probably leave the pineapple out. But I'm going to show you with the pineapple how you take some complicated subject matter and focus on one different part at a time so that it's not overwhelming. So what I'm going to do, see where I'm pointing at these spiky leaves, okay? So what I'm doing is just focusing on one spiky leaf that's nearer the fig. I'm not sure if you can see that, but as you can see, it's a pattern, and children are used to patterns. We have patterns everywhere all around us. We have them in maths, we have them in science, we have them in decoration, all around us. So once you've drawn one little spiky thing, it's not really so difficult to draw another one. And again, depending on your viewpoint, you just have to notice how it relates to the other shapes around it. And then all of a sudden it doesn't become so forbidding. It's actually quite easy to get those different shapes in of those spiky pineapple leaves. So I'm still using quite light strokes at this point, but the next stage we'll look at shading. Okay, I'm quite happy with how this is turning out. So, as you can see, I have established the general shape. We'll recap. I've used light wispy marks. I haven't gone for major detail, and I feel quite happy that my bowl is in proportion. Some people find straight lines quite difficult. What you can do is use your pencil as a guide. If you hold your pencil up and close one eye, you can get the angle. So you can lay it down like that and get the exact angle. So just remind your children that if they want to reposition anything or adjust where a piece of fruit is, now is the time, because once they've worked hard at adding details and things and dark colours and that kind of thing, it will be difficult to change the position of something.